build the business. He was a compassionate human being. He was smart as anything. He helped me with my SOPs, and we had a consultant that I hired. And between the three of us, and my wife was really involved in the business at that point, between all of us, like just getting this thing, like getting a hold of it because it was growing fast. I mean, he was vital. 6,000 times I walked in that first office in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. I walked up those three steps into my office every day, many weeks, 7 days a week. And, it was my second home. I've slept there. There were nights I slept on a treatment table because I was so exhausted. So then I walk in after the closing, and the energy was different. Same people there right now. Like, we didn't start integrating the two staffs. It was still my people. But it was just like, oh shit, this is not mine anymore. It was hard. It was hard. And I was not expecting that.
There's a difference between a dream chaser and a dream catcher. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Dream Catchers podcast. I'm your host, Jerome. And when I tell you the founder's exit paradox is real, some of you are like, yeah, Jerome, whatever. Others are like, maybe, but I'll deal with that when I get there. And then there's some of you who take action up front and get ready for what can feel like a head-on accident with a dump truck if you don't do the right things on the front side of it. And so today, we're honored to have Michael with us today. He's up in the northern part of the country, up in the Northeast, up in Rhode Island, I
Yeah.
think.
Little Rudy.
Little Rhodey. And he is a coach for physical therapists. Now, a lot of people have this icky feeling when somebody drops the word coach. But when you've been able to successfully exit your practice, get the payday, and understand what it takes to do that, because all businesses aren't sellable, he's probably got a whole lot that folks can learn about whether they're physical therapists or not. So with that said, Michael, welcome to the show, man. So glad to have you.
It's great to be here, Jerome. I'm looking forward to sharing some stories and being transparent about it all.
Yeah, man. The war stories told by real operators. So, I love to open the show with saying, so you had an exit.
I did.
Congratulations. You're
Thank
one
you.
of the few. I was doing some research, and like, you have a higher likelihood of being a professional athlete than selling your business for a profit.
Really? That's
Yeah,
the stat.
that's a stat. That's a real stat.
So
And
I could have been
so,
in the NFL, is what you're telling me.
yeah, yeah, I mean, if you're willing to expose your body in that way and go through the heartbreaks and the moves, if you're fortunate enough to have a career, I mean, there's probably some other ways where you can make that money. It might take a little bit longer, but there's other ways you can get there. But yeah, when we dig into it, 80% of businesses that get listed to sell don't sell. And then, that 20% that does sell doesn't mean that they get their number or that they actually get the exit that they want on the backside. And so, we spent a lot of time building this podcast to help those folks who want to be the 20%, the small percentage of the 20% that actually enjoy or appreciate their exit. And so you had an exit. How'd you get there? Where did this journey start?
All right. How did I get to the exit? Well, I started the practice in 2000. And I officially became a business incorporated in 2003. And then I'm not going to tell you the whole story because that's a long story. But from there until 2021, what started as just me doing personal training and physical therapy in people's homes and gyms turned into, in 2021, I was about to open my fourth office. I had about 25 employees within two different states, and we were doing well. And I'm sure you all remember in 2021, we were still coming off the pandemic. Things were crazy. We survived, our business survived and came back. We were doing okay. We were kind of working our way back up to cruising altitude. And around that time, there was lots of money out there, right? People, and I don't know about the other industries, but PT was hot and there were lots of big buyers looking to swallow up little guys. And I had lots of people knocking on my door, not because I was anything special, it was because it was a good time to buy, right? Um, so I entertained some offers and ended up obviously settling with one and exiting at the end of 2021.
So a 21-year journey
Yeah.
to get to a liquidity event. All right. So when you started back in 2000, was it just you? Were you chief everything officer?
I was chief everything. I cleaned, I returned phone calls, I paid bills, I personal trained, I did physical therapy, I marketed, you name it, man. I did it all.
So a lot of people skip over that part when they're showing their highlight reel on social media. They don't show the cleaning and the returning of the calls and getting the paper from the store if you have a printer. So you did that, and I'm glad you did that because I think it makes
I
the
am
story
too,
even
but
more compelling. Because
yeah,
in that moment, right, in that space, you don't know what's happening. Like you don't know if you're going to be successful. You got a hunch, but you have no idea. You don't even know if you can sell the thing most of the time. And
I think,
then,
and I didn't get into it thinking, okay, I'm gonna exit someday and make money. I got into it because I was about to leave my profession. I was like burnt and not really fulfilled in my career, and I spent all this money and time getting an education. So I just went in and what's the term I use? Instead of going ready, fire, aim, I just no ready, aim, fire. I did ready, fire, aim. Like I just did it and figured it out. And
yeah.
yeah, I guarantee you I made some mistakes along the way, but turned out all right.
So then you got your legs under you. You get your sea legs. And I think you probably hire a person. You said you got up to about 25 folks overall. So
Right.
when did you get that first hire? Who were they?
The first hire I hired was a subcontracted personal trainer. Because in my field, I was doing a little bit of non-medically necessary like training type of services, and then I was also doing insurance covered physical therapy, and that started when I started accepting insurances because I started the business all self-pay. And those of you who don't work in healthcare aren't maybe this might be the boring thing, but it's when the insurance companies tell you what they're going to pay for your services, and you have to say thank you, sir. May I have another patient? Like it's nice to have an income stream on a self-pay basis. But so I hired the trainer to start taking over some of my training clients so I could focus on building the PT services. So the trainer was the first hire, and then the second hire was another PT. Yeah, and then the third one was, wow, we need someone to like answer these phones now and get us. We're like messing up our schedules. We're missing appointments. Like we're all over the place. This is a little bit of a mess. So then we hired a front desk.
Wow.
Those are the first three.
Wow, wow, wow. So a lot of times when people are doing this, the first few people they hired don't work out. Were you lucky enough to have those folks in 2021 that you hired in 2000?
Jerome, I was so lucky with. So I think I might have went through one front desk person before I hired what was probably the most valuable employee of the history of my business. Now, you've been into a medical office, I assume, right? So typically you go into a medical office and the front desk person is, a middle-aged female who I'm not being stereotypical, but probably doesn't like her job much and is overworked and bored and doesn't provide the most hospitable and customer service friendly greeting. But anyway, I had a kid who came to me. It was a client I had's daughter's boyfriend. So he was a 21, 22-year-old kid who was working construction, went to college for writing. So he was a fiction writer. I'm like, well, I need someone. I'll talk to him. And he didn't fit the mold. And I said, you know what? There's something about this kid that I was special. So I hired him. And he stayed on with me for, I think he took 1 year off and traveled the country in a van by himself and did some writing. He needed like a reset. But I think he was with me for like 12 or 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was the most amazing human being I've ever met to this day. So fortunate to have him. And it helped me build the business. He was a compassionate human being. He was smart as anything. He helped me with my SOPs, and we had a consultant that I hired. And between the three of us, and my wife was really involved in the business at that point, between all of us, like just getting this thing, like getting a hold of it because it was growing fast. mean, he was vital. And I think I've told him enough times over the years, but Justin, if you're listening, still love you, man.
Oh man, shout out to Justin. So, all right, you get some folks there, and now you are in a space where you open another office, or do you build this out to like 10 folks? Like, how does that expansion go?
It's a great question. So we had a small space in an old mill. So the town that I had my first office in is Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And when you come visit me in Rhode Island, I'll take you by my first office someday, Jerome. Some good tacos around the corner. But it was a smaller space, and then I had the opportunity to take over some adjacent space. So we kind of blew out that one office we had with building the team, brought the billing in-house. I was using a billing company out of California, and I was losing $25,000 a year in improper billing. My consultant made me aware of that. Yeah, that was fun to find out. So brought the billing in-house, put in an administrative office, gave myself a private office in the back, built out a gym, bathrooms with showers because we were doing a lot of trainings with people coming in sweaty and needed to get dressed and showered and go back to work. Really blew out this. It was our biggest facility we had out of the four that we were developing. Um, and then it took me, I forgot how many years, but I saw the need to go. I was on the border of Massachusetts. And again, healthcare is a fickle little industry. And because I was getting referrals from Massachusetts and they had a Massachusetts insurance plan and a Massachusetts zip code, they weren't covered in Rhode Island. So I'm like, we got a lot of people over the border. Why don't we put an office over there? So that's when the second office was in Plainville, Massachusetts. And it was a smaller office, but that turned out to be a workhorse, man. It was when we were up and running there we had a great team. I had a manager with me for like 8 years who just killed it over there. Um, and then around that time, I'm just going into my story about how I expanded. I hope that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So right around that time, my wife was we had two children. We made the decision she wanted to be home with the kids, and there she was done nursing and the kids were in school, so she's like, I'm getting back in, let's do this. So we opened a PT clinic and small group training gym in the next town over from where we live back in Rhode Island. So that was the third one. um Ended up moving that to a nicer spot. um so that's kind of how it grew. And then I was about to open my fourth when I sold. So I ended up opening that office, but as the 21st office of the bigger business who bought me, and not as the fourth office to my original business.
Wow. So does that mean that when you sold, you worked for the company that bought you out?
I did. Yep. I was there for about 8 or 9 months to the transition.
How'd that feel after being your own boss for 20 years?
Honestly, it fucking hurt, man. It was tough. Walking into an office that I counted, I forgot, I think it was around 6,000 times I walked in that first office in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. I walked up those 3 steps into my office every day, many weeks, 7 days a week, because I was the cleaning guy on Sundays. And it was my second home. I've slept there. There were nights I slept on a treatment table because I was so exhausted. So then I walk in after the closing, and the energy was different. Same people there right now. Like, we didn't start integrating the two staffs. It was still my people, but it was just like, oh shit, this is not mine anymore. It was hard. It was hard, and I was not expecting that.
So did you have anybody that was in your network that had sold, or how'd you even know you could sell a business? Because most people, I don't think, understand that you can do that.
Yeah, so I had the fortunate opportunity of um so earlier on in the business, I might have only had two offices at the time. I was approached by a big, I'm gonna call it like a big Walmart of physical therapy type of practice that wanted to buy before the pandemic. So I just danced that dance. I wasn't ready. And then when I figured out, oh, so this is how you evaluate a business. So this is what my business is worth now. This is what a multiple is. So I had a whole education about going through that process. And I had fortunately, there was a guy in my town, very successful business guy, investor, M&A, and he took a call, and he and I talked for like 2 hours on the phone, which I could not believe a man at his caliber gave me that amount of time. And he gave me a good education, and I realized, yeah, now is not the time. But there will be a time. And he said, there's always going to be someone for your practice. Like just hang in there. Like I was in my early 40s at the time. He's like, Mike, that's not enough for you to like
Be done.
retire for not even close. And that's not enough for you to even like put away and then go do something different. Cause like, what are you gonna do? Like, so he got me thinking. And then so that was a great experience. And I'm thankful for him for that advice because it really set me up. And then I joined and got accepted into the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. Have you heard of that?
No.
Oh man, listeners. And so basically, Goldman Sachs went on a mission to train 10,000 small businesses in the US. You basically get, I call it a mini MBA. If you apply, it's a scholarship, it's free. So I get accepted. So in Rhode Island, we have our own cohort because we're so small. Like in North Carolina, you might have two or three different cohorts depending on the geographical location. So it was me and 38 or 39 other business owners from Rhode Island. And you literally go from, we talk about negotiations, legal, HR, hiring, firing, being a leader, like every topic you need to know. Let's dive into your P&L. Like, do you really know how to read your P&L? What's your cash flow? Like deeper than anything I ever had. And we didn't have this kind of training in physical therapy school. So through that, and then we had a whole I think it was like two different lectures on exiting. So I'm like, oh, on this topic now that well, the first time I thought about exiting was years before that. Now I'm like, all right, I'm getting a little bit closer. So through that education, and this is what I try to educate a lot of my clients on, is I got myself ready to exit years before I did because I was, the number one clinician in my business. The business was all about me. It fed my ego for so many years as a young male. I was pretty good at what I did, and I had a very good reputation in the running world. I worked with professional runners from 4 or 5 different countries, collegiate runners. Running was my thing. So, which was great, and I felt awesome doing it. Like I said, it filled my ego. It brought in business. It helped me. My practice was the practice the runner built, how I describe it. But if I'm going to sell a business, I can't be generating that much revenue. So because of my experience there, I started decreasing the amount of clinical work I was doing. And then I had another business, an offshoot that I created I have a trademark that I own called Run Strong, and it developed like I was doing public speaking and clinics and helping coaches not destroy our young athletes. So I was doing a lot of work in that. So I kind of separated out of the clinic, put a little effort into that, and I became the least revenue generating employee on my team when I sold, which, as you know, is pretty good if you don't want to be handcuffed to the business. So I forgot what the original question was, Jerome, but I get to go on tangents here. So I hope I
No,
answered
this
the
is
question.
beautiful
All
because
right, good.
you're putting it. The question was, how would you know you could sell a business? And so it's a combination of things, and almost I don't want to call it haphazardly, but I mean there's some pretty good coincidences that put you in a place where you had a favorable exit. I,
Right,
a lot of people aren't going to get into the Goldman Sachs program, right? And so they're not going to have the exit. They might call the M&A person in their town. That doesn't mean they're going to get a 2 hour call. And
right,
even then, the call was to dissuade you from going down the path that you're going down
right,
because it was too early. What's really cool about what you offered, from my perspective, is this thought of getting exit ready.
right,
And so, what I see most people do is they get the business exit ready, but they don't get themselves exit ready. And
right,
so when you talked about, hey, the more valuable I am to the business, the less valuable my business is. And so I'm going to make myself obsolete, right?
right,
Because if you were paying an employee what you were getting paid for the production that you were producing, that person probably would get let go a
Right,
while
exactly.
before you sold the company. So I love that. But how'd you get yourself ready? Right, you got the
Yeah.
business ready. How'd you get yourself ready?
I didn't. I wasn't ready. So yeah, and as you're talking, I'm like, I got Michael, the business owner, the therapist ready, but Michael, the human, the father, the husband, the son, like I was not ready for what became an emotional roller coaster for me. So I didn't get myself ready is the answer. And I really wish maybe I listened to your podcast back then or had someone on that side of it, because it was definitely tough. And yeah, I had a liquidity event. I put money in the bank. We made an investment. I had time to sit back and real think about what my next phase is going to be. It wasn't enough where I could just never work the rest of my life, but I had some breathing room and I wanted to do something different, which is why I entertained the exit in the first place. So, but then just sitting back and going, oh, wait a minute. So there's that first stage of walking into the business, the offices that you no longer own, right? And I had a like an executive level position for the company, so I was still making decisions and people still came to me, but it was different. Um, and then when I walked away from the practice, now not only do I not own those anymore, but I don't even work for the company that owns them anymore. So I can't just walk in. I mean, I had the three offices that were up and running. Those were my gyms. I didn't join the gym. I would just wherever I was in in the New England area, I'd pop in and get a workout in. Like I lost my gyms. Had to hand over the keys. I lost my second, third, and fourth homes. So it was hard. And it was not, I didn't think it was gonna be. No one prepared me for that.
Hey guys, as you might know, a very small percentage of the people who actually listen to this podcast are subscribers. So do us a favor, subscribe. In fact, we did some analytics and we found out that only 25% of the people who listen are subscribers. And our goal is to get that to about 75% over the next 3 months. So do us a favor, hit the subscribe button so you get notified when our new episodes come. We plan to bring immense value to you guys going forward as we continue to improve the content that we create at Dreamcast. Your dreams should be real. Let's get back to the show.
I had like an M&A guy, I had my lawyer, I had my accountant. We were prepared logistically and numbers wise, and I would argue like like numbers wise, I did okay. I have no complaints. And even the company who bought me, they did their best. Like it was a smooth transition. Of course, there was, they were trying to buy a business for as little as possible. I'm trying to sell it for more than it was probably worth, right? So there was that normal, but it was a good experience overall. But I would argue that the post, everything you're talking about, everything that you're about, this podcast is about, was like the hardest hitting thing for me.
And so we talk about the six centers of doubt: self image, relationship, work, health, prosperity, and significance. You've kind of alluded to it, but I want to go deeper on the self image.
Right.
Did you have an identity outside of Michael, the PT owner, PT practice owner?
You know, I think I did. No, I definitely did. But I didn't realize how much weight I put in my professional identity until it was taken. Right. I'm a dad. I got two amazing kids. One's grown and flown, but loved every second of doing that. I'm in a band. I was competing in like recreational sports. I had other things, but if if people saw me at a restaurant, I was like the runner PT who owns Foundation Performance. That was me.
And
90% of my t-shirts were my company t-shirts.
so you introduce yourself that way. How do you introduce yourself now?
That's a good question. I don't even know how I introduce myself now. Probably, hey, I'm Mike. Nice to meet you. Period.
And that's beautiful, right?
Right.
That's beautiful because now you're in essence. So let's go to relationships. Were you shocked by the people that you used to talk to every day or every week and the fact that you probably didn't talk to most of them anymore?
I don't know if I was shocked because there was that long transition period, right? So like the 8 or 9 months, um, I was actually overwhelmed when it went like public here in Little Rhode Island that I merged with this other bigger, much bigger Rhode Island company, and it was advertised as a merger. And a lot of the referral sources and physicians and relationships I built over the years, my phone blew up, and they're like, "The hell did you do? Like, what's going on? Like, what are you doing?" And
Everything okay, man?
right, yeah, did your wife leave you? What's going on? Um, so it was great because I people now there was this reason for them to express how much my business meant to them and their patients, which filled my heart. Like I was like, wow, I might even start getting a little teary-eyed. Like it was awesome. But then they're like, now what the hell are you gonna do? Like, because you're Mike the PT. I send all my runners to you. You get people better. Like people love you and your staff. It's not gonna be the same. So it wasn't like so that was shocking in a good way. And my staff understood, because I've been transparent with them. They were my second family. There was a lot of hurt feelings, but most of them understood why I did what I did, and this is a process, and the business evolved. Um, and I stayed in contact with them a long time. Um, and now that we're having this conversation, I'm going to reach out to them again when we're done recording and say hi because I haven't talked to them in a while because it's been a long time. They don't need to talk to me as often as they did.
Well, I think there's a fading.
Right.
Some people call it deal friends, right? People that you work with, and when
Deal
we
fringe, is that
find
what you said?
deal, like deal friends, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so when we do the workshops, we find that 60 to 80% of the people that founders talk to the most are related to their business. And so one of the things they walk into if they don't have to work for the company that acquires them is this void of relationship or companionship. And, I think you're experiencing that now because you came out of the backside of that relationship or that working experience. And I know you probably are going to reach out to the folks after thinking about what we've been talking about here, just because of the pleasant memories that came with working with them.
Right.
But what did you do to find new relationships? Because, we're 3 years into it now, that
Hmm.
post exit life.
Right. So I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but when I did sell, um, I had some like loss of family members. So I lost my dad and then tragically lost my sister all within this time span. Yeah, so that was rough. Um, Fortunately, I had the time to be there for my mother and my brother, and so there was that, and then family connections got strengthened when you go through tragedy like that. So there was that, and then I kind of hibernated a little bit, and I reshingled my friggin' house. Like I just worked with my hands and tried to like just kind of get a reset. So I mean, I had friends that I was staying in touch with, but and then when I started building what I'm doing now with the coaching and consulting, then I just started getting back on the horn with all my old connections, let them know what I'm doing. Now it's a different relationship. And now I'm building new relationships with what I'm doing now, which is good. So I guess I think the answer is in there somewhere. And I did many times continue to reach out to my team because, even a lot of them had left. I got word that some of them are still leaving. And so I'm just checking in with them. It wasn't the same, and you're right. It's, I talked to these people literally 5 to 6 days a week for years, and then that was just cut off. Um, so, yeah, I am. I'm going to reach out to them because we're talking about them, and you're spot on. I was fortunate that the team I had brought me good memories. I had some bad employees along the way, but we're not going to talk about them because I'm feeling all lovey-dovey and emotional right now. So just remember those good times.
Well, and the bad times help you appreciate the good times for what it's worth,
Hell
right?
yeah.
You appreciate some people more based on experience you have with other people. So
Right.
I love this, man. we won't go through all six centers of doubt, but one thing I love to talk about is the prosperity piece of it. I think people go one or two ways. I sold my business. I want to make sure I don't lose this money that I just got. Other people go the other way. I'm a spend, spend, spend because I've been waiting so long to be in this place where I actually have money in the bank. And
Right.
there's some continuum of that. They're somewhere on that continuum. My my question for you is more related to the wire hit or the check showed up. I don't, which one
Mhm.
did you do?
Wire.
The wire hits. You
Yeah,
see what I suspect to be the biggest balance you've ever had in your account in your life.
by far.
And now everything's supposed to be okay. Everything's better, right?
No.
What do you mean?
Well, no, yeah, I've got a big bank account, but it was all the other shit we talked about that kind of railroaded me. I think you were setting me up for that, weren't you?
It's not a setup. It's just the way that it happens. I
Right.
think everybody thinks once you get the money, everything's better. It's not. And then I think the other thing is the people around you think because you got the money, everything's better. It's
Right.
not.
No.
And it's beautiful to have the liquidity event. And I think anybody who dedicates that much of their life to something deserves to be rewarded handsomely for it, but it doesn't fix anything but the money problems, right? You
Right.
might be able to pay a bill, or you might be able to go on a nicer vacation. You might sit on a different seat in a plane. You might change the house you live in. You might buy a watch or a bag or some shoes, but they all still serve the same purpose.
Right.
And I want everybody to get to the place where they experience that so that they know that it serves the same purpose. But in the same breath, it doesn't fix the stuff if you didn't get ready for the exit.
Right.
And so, as you were going through that time of working with your hands and coming up with what your next was, how did you land on what you're executing now?
I'm going to credit my wife for some of that because so I was going to do the furthest thing from healthcare at that point. I literally met with a friend of mine. We were going to open a restaurant. He's a chef and restaurateur. And then I was like, my accountant's like, please do not open a restaurant. And so many people kept me away from that. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to open a coffee shop and I'm going to make lattes and espresso for the rest of my working days and bring people joy through caffeinated beverages. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that. So, and through this, my wife's like, and she saw me like struggling, like, what am I going to do? Because I'm not going to go back to do what I was doing. And I legally can't still to this day because I have a non-compete. So I can't do that unless I move. Um, so then she's like, why don't you just consult and coach people? Like you had a good run. You learned a lot of things. Like you can bring a lot of value to someone. I'm like, really? All right, well, maybe I will. And I just started kind of brainstorming that. And then it was like serendipitous. And I think my wife has superpowers, but like 2 days later, I get a email from a guy I tried to hire from California, a PT, and he was like, "Hey man, I got a friend on the East Coast who needs to open his own practice. Like his business that he was working for is tanked, and he's about my age, so he's not a new guy. And he's like, he needs some help starting up a practice. Do you think you can help him?" I'm like, in fact, I can. Like, I just started a consulting business 32 seconds ago. Um, so yeah, so that was I kind of it fell in my lap, and um, the validation I received from my first client was really motivating. And then I got a second client out in California, and I'm hopefully, well, then a third, and I'm hopefully gonna, I'm new to this whole consulting thing. I need clients because I need to start bringing in revenue again, and I'm really finding joy in helping. Because in my field, like the physical therapy world is hurting, and a lot of people are mass exodus, and yeah, we can blame like a lot of people with burnout and COVID and whatever, but like healthcare is tough, and for whatever reason, therapists are just like they're just leaving in mass quantities, and there's a lot of really good people serving a lot of communities, doing lots of really good things for people, keeping them healthy and moving and strong, and getting people to be able to pick up their grandkids or feed themselves or return to sport, all these different things that therapists do. And they're just leaving and they're taking weird jobs in weird industries because they've just had enough. And I want to use my story, my experiences, all the knowledge I've gained through my consultant, through the Goldman Sachs program, through all my mistakes, and try to help people stay in the field that they're passionate. People don't get into PT to be multimillionaires, right? Some of them do, but they don't get into it for that. They get into it because they have a passion to help people. They want to help. And I want to help them be able to help people and have a make a good living on top of it and keep the passion going and maybe have a successful exit down the road as well.
What's beautiful about what I think you can teach other people because you did it is it not being all on you.
Hmm.
You have people running it, you have people fulfilling. I mean, maybe you were still involved in the marketing or some of the other stuff, but at some point, I suspect you probably hired that out too. And then, the referral partners, you get that set up, and you got a sales engine, you got a feed of people coming in or
Right.
new leads. And so that makes owning the business a little less onerous.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
when you're older, it's a lot less hard on your body to push a pin around versus moving people's bodies around and trying to pick them up and manipulate them. And
Right.
I think that's what a lot of people are, I don't want to call it running from, but I think that's part of the reason why they would be leaving what they have been doing or dedicated their life to. So to me, it makes a lot of sense. It's a natural progression.
Yeah.
Um,
And also too, when you comment on that, Jerome, there's the physical part of it. There's not many physical therapists, at least in outpatient orthopedics, or if you're working in like on the stroke floor in a hospital and you literally have to carry humans from chair to bed. Like, yeah, that gets old and it gets tiring and working with your hands. But just the I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but the commodification and the corporatization of physical therapy and the unrealistic demands that these therapists are being forced to hit, and the constant grind of the paperwork and the fiery hoops we need to jump through with insurance companies, it's burning them out. Like they're not able to spend time with their patients. They're spending more time on their computers. And there's a better way. There definitely is, but getting them to see that. So I agree. Yes, is that physical, but I think just the profession in general, what's going on with it on a grander level is really just emptying people's cups right now.
yeah. So y- your wife made the suggestion that this would be something you should do. Was it difficult? And then the call came,
Yeah,
and then you're like, I'm in business, but there's a lot that you're finding out because this is a different business than the business that you were in.
very. Yeah.
What's been most shock? It's not a restaurant though. I watch so many people they come into money and then they go invest in things that they don't understand, which is always baffling to me. But
Right, right.
you've got 2 decades of experience, more than that now. You've seen how to operate it from a holding company, and you're able to guide people through the thing. What's most shocking about this new chapter? Like what surprised you? Because I imagine you weren't coaching or consulting and now you are, and it's probably a little harder than it looks.
Yeah, I think the hardest part is just getting clients. With the PT practice, we built it through word of mouth. It was a brick and mortar, and
Mhm.
everyone hurt, everyone's in pain, everyone's got injuries. There's patients around every corner, right? Um, that wasn't We never did a strong marketing program. We didn't have to. So now just trying to market myself as a coach, which is my new identity on the professional side of my life. That's probably the most difficult, and the most frustrating because I've never really had to put that much time and energy into it. Um, what else I was shocked at, because I had a little bit of imposter syndrome going into it as well, right? I was like, I remember thinking, what are they paying me for? Like, and then I had conversations and realized what is second nature and what I would feel is common sense as a private practice owner is not, right? Yeah, I can see your head nodding. It's not common sense. So I'm having conversations and talking about things that just roll off my tongue, and people are like, whoa, I never knew that. I never thought of that. You just saved me X amount of dollars. You just saved me a fine from the state of California. Like you, these things, and so then, and then I mentioned that the first testimonial I got from my first client was very validating when, this gentleman said, "This is hands down the best money I've ever spent in my career." And he's 51 years old, and I was like, "You talking about me? Like that's me?" So then I started really believing, all right, this is good, and then got validation from the next client, and then the next one, and it's just not then and it goes back to what you're talking about. Like I'm developing new networks and I'm mentoring groups through our professional organization. I'm meeting PTs all over the world. I'm providing value, some of it volunteering, some of it I'm getting paid for. Um, but those were the two shocking things. How hard it was. I figured I'm just gonna put up my website, tell a few people this is what I'm doing, and people are gonna come flocking. And that didn't happen.
Nope, because they know you as the PT guy, not
Right.
the practice guy.
Right. Fix my ankle. Don't tell me how to run my business.
Yeah. How could you possibly know anything about that?
Right.
It's always interesting when you're stepping into the new space. So, have you hired a coach or a consultant or anybody to help you figure this stuff out, or have
Yeah.
you just kind of done it on your own?
No, I learned early on. Again, I'm going to give my wife credit for this. When I hired our business coach, when I was growing my business, when we expanded the office and like things were getting, whoa, like I've got a team of people counting on me to succeed because they need to feed their families. So I hired the business coach and consultant then. So I see the value in that. So now I'm doing something new. And I've got like a mentor that I talk with who's in the similar space. And then I have a sales coach that's helping me out as well.
Drive revenue. Revenue fixes most problems.
Well, I wish the value of my business was a tiny bit more and I could just volunteer my time because I would do it, but I can't. So I need the revenue coming back in.
Well, there's a, and it's always interesting, right? Because people will say, "Oh, I'm sad," or "I'm work optional," or insert whatever word for retirement. And I always struggle with, well, I'm just going to give the time away. I'm just going to volunteer because when things are valuable, there's got to be some type of transaction to demonstrate the value from my perspective.
That's a great point.
And there's also, I believe, some real value in the accountability of the resources exchanging, especially if you're doing for-profit stuff, right? If you're helping practice owners grow the practice. Um,
I got you. Yeah.
No, I don't want to get on my soapbox, but I will. And so I think it's great that you're doing what you're doing. And it's the epitome of what dream catchers are. They go out and they make their dreams a reality, and then they turn around and they're willing to share their experiences to help others figure out how to make their dreams a reality. And that is what I believe is going to make the world a better place because none of us got to where we are for those who are considered successful. None of us got to where we are by ourselves.
Mm-mm.
We all did something along the way and got help from somebody that helped us get to the place that we are. And so I'm glad that you're reaching back and I'm glad you're charging those folks that you're reaching back to because they, I believe, right or wrong, I believe they'll value it more, they'll appreciate it more, they'll be more accountable and they'll take action. And so they're going to give us the proof. You know, one of my favorite sayings is dreams should be real. And every time you meet somebody and you help them accomplish or achieve something that they didn't think they could do on their own, you make that a reality. So, Michael, I want to thank you so much for being a dream catcher and sharing your experiences with us. I think it's phenomenal that you have the self-awareness and acceptance to openly talk about the founder's exit paradox and the struggle that comes on the backside, and the need potentially for folks to get help to cross that chasm. And whether you're fortunate enough to have a partner like you do who can see opportunities for you and help you walk into that light, or you get it from people who do it every single day and know kind of the ins and outs, and I don't want to call them shortcuts, but they're helping you be more efficient in that process. There's real value there from my perspective, because I've watched some people spin for a year, 2 years, 4 years, and they're trying to figure out who they are, and they're creating all kind of damage. We call it collateral damage along the way. It's such a beautiful thing when somebody connects with their business, their family is still intact, and they found their next thing. And that's what we consider exiting to excellence. They find their next thing where they're making an impact. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been great. You're a great person to talk with. You got good energy.
I really appreciate that, man. To the listeners, well, before we do that, Michael, they want to find out more about you. What's the best way for them to do that?
Best way would probably be through my site, which is Michael J. Silva, Silva.com. Or I'm not too active on social media, but I do. You can find me on LinkedIn, Michael J. Silva, Michael Silva Consulting. I'm sure you'll find me. Just look for the gray-haired guy with the beard.
Love it.
And on Instagram as well, Michael J. Silva underscore.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. We're going to link it all up in the show notes. So all you got to do is click away, ladies and gentlemen. Again, Michael, thank you so much for
Thank you.
hanging
No,
out with us today and sharing your story. I find it extremely inspirational, and I took a lot from the conversation. To the listeners, your dreams should be real. We'll catch you on the next episode.